What we're going to talk about today looks very simple. Suspiciously simple, perhaps, especially for a mind that is used to complicating everything. But this very simplicity is the core of all awareness practice. If you truly get this and start applying it, the mental prison you've lived in your whole life will slowly begin to dissolve. This is the third and final part of our series on the mental cage. In the first episode, we looked at the mechanism of how this cage is formed. We saw how the mind replaces a living person with a file, how a moment is replaced with the interpretation, and reality is replaced with the commentary. We looked at why this isn't a mistake, it's just how the mind works. But as long as this mechanism goes unnoticed, any practice remains surface level, because it's still the mind practicing. In the second episode, we explored why it feels easier in nature, why forest silence feels so true, why thoughts retreat around animals. It's not that nature gives us peace. Nature just doesn't support our mental projections. A tree doesn't interact with your self-image. An animal doesn't support your personal story. But the crucial point is that neither the tree nor the animal creates presence. They only help to see that the silence is already there. You don't need to build it. It just stops being buried under your thoughts. And this is a vital shift. You cannot make the outside world the source of your internal state. Nature can be a reminder, a pointer. But if your peace depends on your environment, it will always be unstable. True freedom is the ability to step into that silence regardless of where you are or what is happening around you. Nature only reminds you of a possibility that already exists inside you, and the goal is not to spend your life searching for reminders. The goal is to become that presence yourself. This is a capacity that must be developed internally. The most commonly known tool for developing it is a meditation. However, it's often misunderstood. The essence of meditation lies in training your attention. It's about achieving awareness, deep emotional calm, and mental clarity through focus or contemplation. But meditation isn't some specific technique. It's not about sitting in a lotus position, and it doesn't require a special teacher, a retreat, or quiet surroundings. Many people believe that presence requires the right circumstances, silence, free time, an absence of problems, but this is a misconception. Presence is not an escape from action, it is a different quality of attention within the action. Access to silence should not depend on forest, animals, people, or where you happen to be. It's about an internal point of reference, a quiet space that remains calm even when thoughts are racing, emotions are shifting, and events are unfolding. And this space doesn't need to be created, it's already there. Hence, practice isn't about adding something new, it's about removing the unnecessary, stripping away the noise that prevents you from noticing it. So if silence doesn't depend on the forest, if presence isn't created by animals or special conditions, then it means that silence must be available right here, in your ordinary life, in this day, in this room. The simplest and most reliable way to develop this is to start weaving attention into your daily routine, into the very things you already do every day. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. Your ordinary life, with its chores, responsibilities, and routines, is already the space for practice. The problem is that the body usually acts automatically, while the mind is somewhere else, occupied with the past or the future. It manifests in the way a person walks without actually feeling the step, drinks water without noticing the taste, opens a door while mentally already moved on to the next event. Life is happening, but it's barely being experienced. Some might think that presence is about constantly reminding yourself to be mindful. But presence is not the thought I need to be mindful. It's not adding another mental layer On the contrary, it's about taking one away. It's removing the layer that immediately labels, explains, and comments on everything. When this layer recedes, what remains is the simple experience of what is. There is one very simple skill, not naming. This specific practice, the practice of not naming, teaches you how to be truly here, to be present in the moment, not just in the forest, not just with animals, but in the most ordinary actions. Any routine task, even the smallest one, can become a space of presence. The essence is simple. Allow the action to be the only thing occupying your attention, without an internal commentary. Usually it's different. You do something and at the same time you're thinking about it. A second version of reality appears in your head. It explains, it evaluates, it comments. In a sense, a parallel reality emerges. The practice is to let go of this second layer, not to think about the action, but to be in it, to let your attention drop into direct sensory experience. Let's take the simplest example, washing your hands. Usually this happens automatically. The body moves on its own. Meanwhile, the thoughts are somewhere else, in the past or the future. The water flows, the soap slides, movements happen, but you are barely present. The moment passes without being lived. Sometimes people think that presence means narrating what is happening. For example, now I am washing my hands. But this is still just a thought. It's still a commentary. It's that same second layer. It's as if you are observing yourself from the outside instead of feeling from the inside. True presence is not thinking about the moment. It is the experience itself. The sensation of the water, its temperature, the texture of the soap, the movement of your palms, without a story about it. In that moment, you are not a thinker, you are not a commentator, you are simply perceiving. Attention shifts from words to sensations, from concepts to living experience. And that is when an ordinary action becomes meditation. You are training your attention to stay here, not to run away, not to create a second version of reality, and gradually, even the simplest action stops being just a means to an end. It becomes an experience, a small island of presence within your day. Let's take another simple example, making a cup of tea. In traditional tea ceremonies in China or Japan, every movement is made slowly and mindfully. But the point is not the tea itself, and it's not about the correct sequence of actions. The main thing is the quality of attention. When every gesture is performed with full awareness, it becomes a form of meditation. You can repeat the form of the ritual perfectly, hold the cup correctly, perform the movements precisely, and yet be completely absent inside. Your hands are doing one thing, while your mind is occupied with anxieties, plans, or internal dialogues. In that case, everything turns into a lifeless form. Form is just a shell. Your presence is what brings life to it. It's not what you do that matters, but how you do it. Sometimes a simple action, performed with attention, is deeper than any complex ritual done on autopilot. The same applies to so-called empty moments throughout your day. Waiting, standing still, breaks. Usually we try to fill them with something, a phone, thoughts, conversations. But these moments are not empty, they contain space. They are filled with the possibility of peace and self-discovery. For example, you're sitting at a red light. Usually the mind immediately labels the situation as a problem. Impatience arises, tension, a slight internal resistance. In that moment, the mind starts building a parallel reality, analyzing, planning, rushing into the future. But this same moment can be lived differently. You can relax your shoulders, feel your hands on the steering wheel, notice your breath, the weight of your body in the seat. Look around without commentary. See the colors, the shapes, the light, without giving them names. become a field of perception. And if your attention gently returns to sensations, the waiting disappears. Only this moment remains. Pure presence. You discover that your state is not determined by the traffic light, but by where your attention is directed. In this very way, a glass of water, walking from one room to another, opening a door, the moment you sit down in a chair, each of these actions can become a doorway into a deeper dimension of your own being. These are short pauses of peace throughout the day, small clearings in the endless stream of thoughts. Each of these moments gives your nervous system a chance to release unnecessary tension. Over time, these pauses accumulate and begin to connect. A more stable background of calm appears, quietly present beneath all your activities. And gradually, the habit of endless thinking weakens. You aren't fighting the mind, you aren't trying to stop your thoughts, you're simply shifting your attention to where the direct experience is, from words to sensations, from analysis to perception. When attention stops feeding intrusive thoughts, they gradually lose their power, they become quieter on their own. This is when the division between the sacred and the ordinary, the spiritual and the material, begins to disappear. Any moment, if lived fully, can become a moment of deep connection and peace. In this very way, the ego's conviction that happiness is somewhere ahead, that you first need to get somewhere, get something, or change something, gradually weakens. When labels are let go, internal resistance disappears. You stop arguing with reality, you start to be with it. There is the moment, the feet on the ground, the breath, the weight of the body, without names. In this very way, your entire life becomes a space for practice. On the outside, nothing may change. Thoughts will continue, actions will continue, your to-do list won't disappear. But a quiet space emerges, a background against which all of this happens. This isn't a new you. It's not an improved version of yourself. It's an internal shift, not the voice, but the one who hears it, not the stream, but the space in which it moves. And then it becomes clear, freedom is not about changing your circumstances. It's not about escaping to the forest. Freedom is the ability to be in any moment without the mediator of interpretation. What used to open up only briefly near a tree can now become the background of a conversation, of your work, a conflict, or your commute. This is not a withdrawal from life, it is a return to it, directly. And this is how your entire life becomes meditation. No one can do this for you, but it is entirely within your own field of attention. You don't need to change the outside world to feel peace. You need to relate differently to your own mind. It is a shift from the role of the character to the role of the silent witness. Freedom is not in flight, it is in full presence. And it always begins the same way, with one simple action, with one single moment of attention. Not by emptying the mind, but by discovering the silence that is already there. Try it today, in just one small moment, simply perceive, without the need to immediately name it, and see what happens.